island in a county called Kent. We're about 30 miles from London.
And about 40 miles from Europe. From
through the tunnel. We got 2 kids, Hannah and Joseph. They are 22 and 24.
Well done.
Got it right.
Good job, Dad.
First test pass for the day. Now, how long have you been married, Rob? Quick.
When's our anniversary?
3rd of September. And actually, here we're going to Venice to celebrate our 30th anniversary this year.
Good.
And Venice. We've been to Italy, but we've never been to Venice. So.
Lovely.
Looking forward to that. So we've been in this area for most of in fact, all of our married life. We moved in a week after we got married. Been involved in our local community for all of the time that we've been around here, and we're just passionate about seeing people come together and build amazing teams that can change the world.
Amen.
Cool.
Now a little bit about the professional side of the expression of your life with Jesus. It's been many and varied ideations over time. Tell us a little bit about that for both of you.
Okay, so I did. We met at university. We met at Coventry University. I was studying. I'll tell you what. I was studying politics and history, which I've managed to successfully never use in any of the jobs that I've done.
I've successfully managed.
So I started off. What did I? Immediately after we finished our degrees, we got engaged on the final year of our degrees, and so I needed to earn some money. So I did a sort of job that I'd done before. Then I worked in a IT company, a software company that my dad was running, and then I did some website design very briefly, and then I went into IT full time, into networking in the education context. But then while that was happening, in the background, I started to buy property and to refurbish, to rent out. So that's largely what pays the bills. But why don't you bring us up to speed on what you studied? And
so I studied foreign languages, French and German, and then trained as a teacher. And that's why we moved to the southeast, actually, because that's where my training was. And if you cut me in half, I have got teacher written all the way through me. I just love sharing information and interacting with people of any age who want to learn. So I've had various expressions of that through my life as a formal secondary school teacher, which is kind of 11s to 18-year-olds originally, and then various forms through church over the years in Sunday school or kids work. I worked at a local heritage site. There's a dockyard near here where, amongst other things, I was a pirate for a little while.
Pirate?
Yeah, literally worked on a boat with primary school children, sharing stories.
I would have loved to have seen that. You got to share some pictures.
I will. I'll show you my favorite
Did you have a wooden leg and a thing on your shoulder?
I did have a parrot, it has to be said, and a fake beard at times as well. But that's a whole different story. We'll be here all day if we talk about that. So I then worked in church, helping people to engage with just the Bible and engaging with listening to God in particular, passionate about the prophetic. And now actually I work in our local cathedral, which is amazing. It has been there for 1400 years. An expression.
It's almost as long as Rob. That's amazing.
I know. So yeah, really love that. I'm part of a great team, the education team, and love showing people around the cathedral. So yeah, that's what I do really.
Yeah. So in terms of what pays the bills, so we have a property business. So we have a property portfolio. Some of the properties are just in our personal names. Some are in a couple of limited companies that we own. We have one limited company that has a couple of properties that's that's just us, but we also have another company which is a joint venture with some friends, and that's something that we've done quite consistently. Is built relationships with people and started businesses with people and different ventures with people. But one of the things that that we've both done and that we both do is it's difficult to give it a specific classification. You could call it coaching, but we've coached many people who, for example, wanted to get into property, but also, I mean, we're working alongside one of the people that managed a number of our properties. We came alongside and helped them to start their own business. They had been previously working with someone else. I've mentioned in the blurb that we sent you, we're working with somebody in the therapy space, and also, yeah, we've reconnected recently with someone at one of our local church, which it's been really interesting. Somebody that we've known on and off for a number of years, but God has really caused us to reconnect with them, and that's opening up a lot of exciting opportunities. So yeah, so the bills are paid by the property stuff, but we're doing a lot of other stuff and work alongside other people as well.
Now you've, I mean, you guys have done a lot in what we would call the professional Christian space. Both of you've been church planters. I mean, you don't get much more professional Christian than being a church planter. You've also been the head of a international supernatural school of ministry. Again, you don't get much more professional Christian in terms of that expression. And now your expression of walking out the kingdom of God seems to be looking quite different, not better or worse, but certainly looking quite different. Talk to us a little bit about how you see what you're doing right now. Let's use the term discipling nations. Let's use that term, okay, just for a minute. We've been playing around with the language of that to go, okay, let's put get a handle on that. What does it mean to disciple a nation? I mean, gosh, you guys have probably spent as many hours in that headspace as we have over the years trying to get a handle on this thing. The language that seems to sit the best for us is this language of human flourishing, a person becoming fully alive in the image God made them to be. So if we use that as a basic working definition, human flourishing, becoming fully alive in the image of made to be. How does what you do now, how do you see that express that expression of your life with Jesus, and what ways do you see that as part of discipling the nation right where you are?
Well, so as you would say, Mark, it's a very good question.
And that's a great definition.
And actually, I mean, we've probably talked previous times about this, but I think it's a challenge in most people who are serious about following Jesus and want to disciple other people in following Jesus and want to be a disciple themselves. In my experience, most churches struggle with it. Like, what does it look like? How do you actually do this thing? But for me, without any question, really probably the greatest example I can think of in my life of a situation where I feel we've been involved and are involved in discipling someone else actually very much started outside of a church context and in our business context. So I'm going to work hard because some of these people are like friends and clients and that we still work with. So we're also confidentiality.
Of course,
so it's very difficult for me to not use names. But I will try hard.
Fred and Mary Jones.
Exactly. Yeah. So we have a friend and letting agent who's managed a number of our properties for a number of years, and so I'll tell you a bit of a story. I was dropping off keys at their house, but I'd never been to their house before, so I didn't know for sure if it was their house, and I thought it could be a quite major mistake if I put the keys through the letterbox of the wrong house, and then I've lost my keys and I can't get in. And so thankfully, while I was there, they were on holiday for a few days, but their partner at the time came to the house and said, "Can I help you?" And I explained who I was and why I was leaving keys there and wrote a note. And then I noticed the guy was wearing a wrist support. So I said, I know this is going to sound strange, but can I pray for you that gets better? And he said, yeah, that's fine. So I said, can I put my hand on your wrist? He said, yeah, that's fine. So I did that. Anyway, I didn't feel anything. As far as I'm aware, he didn't feel anything. I walked away. And then I didn't hear anything about it. 2 or 3 months later, I got a phone call from the letting agent talking about something else. And they said, oh, by the way, my partner, who they said, I don't know what that guy did, but since he did it, I haven't had any pain in my wrist anymore. And then they'd actually moved house, and he'd helped them move house and had no pain. I found out after that he'd broken his wrist like 2 or 3 times, and it had never healed properly. So anyway, to cut a long story short, I explained to her how that had happened, that it wasn't me, that it was Jesus, that I'd prayed for him, and she came along to an Alpha course, became a Christian, started following the Lord, still following the Lord now. But actually the bit that I feel has even more been discipleship, although obviously that's central, they were working for somebody, and the only way I could put it really is they were being exploited by this person that they were working for. They were doing all of the work, had all of the downsides of running a business and none of the upside. So they were just a straightforward employee, getting quite low pay, but taking on all the burden. The other person wasn't even in the country. And so over a period of years, because they actually came to us at one point in tears saying, I can't carry on like this anymore. This person's not, it was okay when they were just letting me get on with it, but now actually things they're doing actually hindering me from doing my job. The person would literally just dip into the company, take money out with no warning, so she couldn't then pay contractors. And so we walked her through a process of starting her own company, of the landlords giving notice, and we transferred our properties over to her. And what's really interesting is a few weeks ago we had a situation where actually a tenant died, and we had to refurbish a house and then get new tenants in, and somebody came to do a cleanup job, and I didn't realize it was this guy that I'd prayed for. And so he recognized me. I hadn't actually recognized him. And he, interestingly, he hasn't become a Christian, even though this thing actually happened to him, this miracle. But what was wonderful was hearing him say that this person's completely changed. And you can see, now this is someone that lived with them for like 20 years, and saying like, it's like they're a different person. They're much happier. They're much more, that is so. And I feel like actually that's what discipleship is.
Yeah.
It's helping people to be their full selves in every area, in obviously their relationship with God and their relationships with others, but in their business, in how they work, in how they run their finances, in how they see themselves. So yeah.
I think you're absolutely right there. I love, one of the things that you said there was we walked her through, and for me that perfectly sums up what discipleship is. It's entirely relational, and programs and structures and strategies, they play a part. Sometimes they can be helpful in facilitating something, but it's entirely about the individual and the relationship with them, and that connection, and actually going on a journey. And it doesn't actually matter where the starting point is, but it's just taking steps forwards, and take them into that fullness of who God has created them to be. And we all learn differently. So, if I think about how I raised our 2 kids, they're completely different personality wise, same parents, same upbringing, same structure to family life, but we treated them both differently because you know your children, you
Right.
study them, don't you? And you think
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
one actually responds to one, and this time this one is better in this sort of environment. And you find out ways to connect with them meaningfully that they can engage with, and own their journey. So it's about, I think, getting them to own their own journey, but then you being prepared to go on it with them and walk them through from their starting point to wherever God wants you to take them, really.
It's interesting what you're talking about. What I'm hearing is that journey never really ends.
No.
It's you can't put a time limit on discipleship. You can't say, well, I've been teaching you for 12 weeks now, you should have it all under your belt and be good to go. It's not about a time limit. It's not about a like you said, the programs, they have a place, but they're part of the journey. They're not the journey.
No,
they're not the whole journey. And we
And
can't just kind of
no.
See you later. You've done your thing. You've got your certificate. Off you go.
Yeah.
And one of the key things for us is, like, so that person that you're discipling, that you're in their life, that they know that they're never on their own. And one of the things, and it makes all of us laugh, all three of us who are involved in this journey. But like, stuff happens that upsets you, that annoys you. People do stuff. People are unreasonable.
In the UK, you're so polite and so pleasant.
Yeah. And so, like, our friend will write an email or a letter or whatever, like, fully expressing how they feel about, and then they'll give us a call and they'll say, like, I've written this text and I'm going to say this, and they'll read it out, and then we'll sort of, nod and listen, and it's like, I'm really glad that you've written that. I'm really glad that you've got that off your chest, and you've got it, you've had that therapy of working through all the things that you need to forgive that person for. Now we're going to hit delete. We're going to keep the dear John bit, and then
keep dear John.
We'll talk through what exactly and a lot of it comes down to, what does this person actually need to know? What is it that you're trying to convey to them? What is it that you need them to do now? And just say,
but also it's strength of relationship in that moment. We have that relationship where she will phone us and say, I'm really angry about this. I need to vent about it. I know you're going to tell me not to send it, but I just need to do it anyway. And we've got that really great relationship where she's inviting us to speak into her life, and we have permission to say that, don't do that. That's not the best way to do that. And the beautiful thing about it now is that she will do the same to us. She will when we're stressing about something, she will speak just incredible wisdom sometimes, and we think, oh my goodness, I'm so blessed by having you in my life now. And so it's just about keeping that connection and that strength of relationship. Again, discipleship, if you haven't got that connection, how meaningful is it? If you're going on a journey with someone but you're not speaking, how meaningful is that? It needs to be a deep connection, and one where you can say anything, try anything.
And one of the things I love about it actually is the fact that she will push back and so this relationship has actually developed to the point where we're effectively now in business with this person, and so there's been all the sort of negotiation of what does that look like, and having sort of powerful discussions and saying, actually, I've been thinking about it, and I'm not comfortable with us doing it this way. I feel that we should do it that way, and feeling like actually it's really cost that person to bring that up, because they have such a lot of respect and love and honor for us, and know that they couldn't have done what they've done, but actually they feel confident enough, strong enough to say, actually, I'm not comfortable with doing this way. I think we need to do it this way or find alternative, and thinking you have to have that depth of relationship for it to be real. If you're discipling someone but actually they can never question you, or they can never tell you, I think the way you're doing that is not the best way, then actually I think you have to question what depth of connection you actually have, what lifelong change you're actually bringing. But when you know you can both challenge each other, then I think then things have gone to another level.
Yeah, they have. Well, I think that's what we're talking about here, isn't it? That we're in that moment, we're truly giving permission for the expression of the image of God in another person to present itself.
Exactly.
And to the point before where, your kids are different, it's going to present in a different way. And so it should, because if it does not, we actually have hindered the expression of the image of God. We haven't helped it because we've cloned it. We've made it, just like us, that we're making people in the image of us. Well, that's actually not what we're called to do. We're actually called to create these opportunities for them to express themselves. We're tapping into another word here that's been a word that is really key to our hearts. And I know even in your own family journey, this is a word that you guys have, I think, a very profound and acute working knowledge of. And I want you to speak to this for a moment and your understanding and outworkings of the word dignity. And it is a key word, I think, in what we're talking about right here, because when you're giving expression for a person to speak, that's quite a dignifying act. Talk to us about what you find that word to mean, and what that's meant in your own life and your extended family's lives as well. Because again, life happens. You got people of all ages and stages of life, as well as what you're doing working with people in business. What does that word dignity mean to you?
That's a good question. I think one of the things that, like Vicky pointed out when we were sort of preparing for this, and you'd sent through some ideas of things that you might want to talk about and so on. And do you want to talk about? You talked about the sort of power dynamic differences that there can be, and how you honor people and understand.
Yeah, I think. Dignity is remembering who you're talking to. You're talking to a child of God, and
remember who you. Right, just a moment. Write that down. If you're writing anything down, write that down. Remember who you're talking to.
Whoever it is, remember what God has put inside them, and we've all got a story to tell, and we all carry that greatness. Whether we know Him or not, at whatever point we are, in our lives, we carry that within us, and so it's a matter of protecting that, really, and just being respectful, as though Jesus was in the room, and one thing that we talked about was often the power dynamic. We trot out phrases in the Christian world about, if you've got an issue with your brother, go and talk to him about it, and that kind of thing. But just actually remembering the power dynamic that's at play there. Are you actually in a strong position? Are they vulnerable? So for example, we had an opportunity recently where a friend contacted us, put us in touch with a couple who were about to sell a house, and they were selling it under quite sad circumstances. Actually, they were separating as a couple, and he'd had various injuries, which meant they couldn't stay together. So they were actually quite vulnerable, and we sort of said as we were praying, the temptation here could really be to manipulate or to take advantage and exploit, to take advantage of their vulnerability, to put in a cheeky low offer, for example. And we just felt, actually, that's not who we are. We're better than that. And and they actually deserve and need some protection and support right now. So actually what we did, we didn't actually offer. We phoned and said, look, this is how to get a best offer in your situation, and directed them to some people who could help them. get a bed off. It would have been you, Jan, if we'd been town. But you know, we were able to do that, which was a huge blessing. But it is just about treating people with dignity and respect, and remembering that God is in the room when you're talking, not in a fearful way, but just in a respectful way.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's good. Yeah, remembering who you're talking to.
Yeah.
And Vicky's, you know, like we rent out houses, and sometimes they're, you know, well, sometimes it's a flat, sometimes it's a 3-bedroom house, sometimes there are some places where we rent out a room in a house, and then people share a kitchen and things like that. And you know, obviously you have disagreements, you have people, you know, people making requests, sometimes reasonable, sometimes unreasonable, and you're having to negotiate and deal with that. And you know, it's really important to always try and put yourself in the other person's shoes and think, okay, if I'm living in one room, and okay, I might have my own bathroom, but you know, I probably don't feel like a very powerful person. So if something goes wrong in that room, that's a pretty big impact on my life. And you know, for us, it could feel like an irritation, or they're being unreasonable, or you know, but trying to think what it's like to be that person, and trying to respect and honor them where they're at. And sometimes having to say, I'm really sorry, but we've done everything practically possible to sort that, and actually now that's you. But you know, just honoring that person, respecting them as a human, as a child of God. I think that's what that looks like.
Yeah, I love it.
And the kind of impact that has on people in the nation. We look at, and we've talked about this before on different conversations, but we talk about discipling nations, and we have this expectation that it's, you know, that the whole nation's going to change very quickly and very perceptively. But what making disciples is all about is working with the one and making those almost imperceptible changes in some ways, you know, hard to perceive, but every life that you changes a nation.
Yeah.
And
That's right.
yeah, it just brings home the magnitude of it all, I think.
Yeah.
That every single one is worth. Just because it's not 100 people, it's only one. The one is probably more important than the 100, as Jesus. Already, you know, he goes after the one and leaves the 99 in the pen. So anyway.
And when we, so we're going to say something.
No, I was just going to say exactly that. You know, if you'd asked Jesus when he were here on earth what his global impact looked like, you know, it looked like sitting with the one, didn't it? And in fact, you know, when the disciples were advising him to go to this town or that town where there would be more people to listen and he'd get the word out quicker, he was not at all interested in that. He just wanted to deal with the one in front of him and listen to the Father. And what better model, really?
Amen.
Yeah.
I'm really, really intrigued around this idea of your investment strategy. And when I hear the way you worked with that vulnerable couple, I look at that and go, in any sort of investment management book or thing that you would read, that's not typically there's not typically a chapter devoted to the care of others and the betterment of others. Yet when we look at again this nature of discipling a nation, it really is right way up thinking. It's not upside down thinking; it's right way up thinking. And one of the things we tried to break down again as we've been really trying to wrestle the bear of what does it mean to disciple a nation, and as limited as this is, it helps us to get a handle on it. Some have tried to define it in terms of 7 mountains and spheres and whatever. I just got the acronym nations and said, okay, I can remember that. So we looked at that and said, okay, well, first of all, it's dealing with, nature. We're all on this big blue marble together. We've got some measure of responsibility to take care of it, okay? Then we've got academia, the free flowing of knowledge, that we're not protecting ours and go, well, you can't have what I know, I'm holding it over here. And but this free flowing. Talent retention is another big one. You show me a poor nation, I'll show you a nation that's bleeding its talent. So a nation where there's mentoring and coaching and things along the way to try and help and build up people. I is in this investment one, and we'll come back to that in just a second. O is order and governance. So we actually have a legal system that's fair and equitable. That people can trust to be able to work and live in a healthy society. And N is news media that chooses not to do harm, but actually release the truth. And then S is social services that people can get access to, that are our most vulnerable and needy in our communities, who otherwise could never take care of themselves. And so when we try and look at what does it mean to disciple nations, when we look at those elements, and again, it's a hopelessly inadequate definition of what does one look like, but it sort of encompasses some of these very practical elements that in some way, shape or form, most of us are doing something of every day that we're involved in. On this investment one, let's unpack a little bit more even of the thinking around what you did there with that person, and what's your, like, the bigger picture view, because you've still got to put food on the table at the end of the day. But yet here you are administrating what I would think a key spiritual leadership principle at the same time. Talk to us a little bit more of the thinking and the understanding of the bigger picture in that kind of decision making, because I think there is some of the gold of discipling a nation right there.
Good question. I mean, it's probably helpful to give some more color to that, and it could come across as well like it's like that everything we're doing is completely philanthropic and like we're never interested in making profit, which is actually not true. But so for example, in that situation, so a friend had put me onto this property, and then I'd reached out because I always want to look at the person and their situation and assess whether it's something we want to get involved in. So they were very honest about the fact that this house needed quite a lot of work, and they were honest about the kind of price that they wanted for it. And from a practical point of view, we also looked at it and were like, okay, this is quite far away from us physically, so it's going to be quite difficult to do that travel. By the time we do lots of work, actually the amount that we would have made would not be huge. But also, we knew their situation. We knew this is a divorce. They're both going to be starting a new life. They're both going to want a decent amount in the pot as a deposit for a place or to buy a place outright. And just realizing what we're going to be able to offer you to make it work is not going to be what you need for what you need to do to move forward. So now we didn't close the door on it. I said, I was just honest and expressed what I've just expressed to you, and said, we've looked at the numbers. In order to make it work for us, we'd have to offer something that's considerably below what you're needing to get. So the best thing that you can do is to go with a local real estate agent and get an offer that's the best price that you can get. Now, if you try and do that and you struggle with that and it's not working and you want to come back to us, then you can do that. The door is open. But we think that for you, this will offer you the best solution, and this will give you more than we can offer you. So that was a bit of our process.
So there's a key phrase there too, and that's the phrase transparency and honesty.
Right.
So with that, how's your understanding of God in
Yeah.
that, because typically in business, I've got to keep my cards close to my chest.
Mhm.
Julie and I
Yeah.
were playing a game the other day. She bought me for my birthday for Christmas. What's it called again? Sequence. That's right. And you got the cards, and you got the little dice, the little things to go on the board, and you're sitting there and you're holding your cards like this. Going, she can't afford to see my cards because, and she
I can't
won.
afford to let her see
Yeah, because if she does that, I'm hooped here. She'll know my next move and my strategy that I'm planning to make. And in business, it's very similar. And in business in the world, that's very much how it plays out. You've played a different hand and a different strategy, which tells me something about how you understand the nature and character of God. Tell us a bit about that, because that I think again is a real key to what does it mean to walk out this whole thing of on earth as it is in heaven and discipling nations. It tells me something about how you view God when you can play your hand like that.
Yeah. I mean, jump in at any
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
I think one of the things is like when you have a relationship with God, and also you have a relationship with yourself, and with your past and future self, and like we've had scenarios before. So for example, we had a scenario once before where we were offered a property. Now this time actually we did go through and buy it. And if I'm honest, like sometimes now I look back and I think, did we deal with everything with integrity, which I believe we did. But like my own sense of, it's got to be right, there's got to be integrity, I've got to be able to sleep with it and it not keep me up at night. So there is a sort of conscience issue, because thing is, you can keep your cards to your chest, and you can not tell anyone what you're doing, but you know what you're doing. And you're the one that you've got to live with for the rest of your life. And if you screw someone over and you do something, and to be honest, I often struggle too much with this stuff, where I feel like I'll, did I do this right? Did I do that right? But I think that it is, first and foremost, it's what does God think of this? Would he smile on this? And it's always like any transaction that we do, we want everybody involved to win. If everybody doesn't feel like they've won, then somewhere along the line something's not gone right. It's in every single situation, everybody needs to benefit, and like you say, to have their dignity. I mean, we had a situation a few years ago. We bought a property from somebody who had significant mental health issues, and once we had the offer in for the property, we realized there was a lot more work that we had to do than we had anticipated. So we actually had to go back and lower our offer. Now, I wasn't comfortable about doing that. I didn't want to do that. My word is my bond, and but the landscape had changed. So now we later discovered that actually, had we not bought the property, the bank was going to repossess the property, and actually this person would have got nowhere near what we were offering. They would have been just sold to, and whoever would have offered them anything that would just cover the bank loan, or even if it didn't cover the bank loan, and they would just have a debt. And so knowing actually now this word dignity, this person has the dignity of, they haven't just had the bank pull the rug from under them.
Right.
They've actually gone to market and sold their property, and now they've got a bit less than they were hoping for originally, but they've sold it. And they've got something to show for it, and they can now start a new life. And that's it's just one.
This is good stuff.
Everybody to win.
That's true. We want everybody to win. God's amazing at finding solutions where everybody can win, and that's just what it is. And I think you know, we value our connection with God and also our connection with other people. It's incredible how people stay in your life and you know, those things, you know, kind of come around again, don't they? You know,
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
so we just always want to do that, keep our connection strong with people and say, look, just being upfront, this is who we are. Jesus was full of integrity. Jesus, you know, was always fairly open about, well, he wasn't always open about who he was. He never answered, he didn't always answer every question directly. I think, again, you need wisdom in business. Sometimes you don't need to display all your cards.
Right.
You don't have to show your hand. But actually, if connection is really important, then sometimes it's good to say, look, this is where I'm coming from. This is who I am. And, you know, that's not going to change. And if they don't want to do business with you, well, we're not going to lose out because we've remained true to who we are and who God's made us to be.
You can have this picture.
Yeah, that's good, Vicky.
You know, this rat race. This rat race, and you know, in a rat race, it's kind of, for me to win, you have to lose.
Yeah.
You can look at it like a sport, like football, there's only one winner, but actually business isn't like that. Or it doesn't have to be like that, and it's much better if it isn't like that. Actually, I can't claim credit for this one, but I did a series of interviews once about this kind of thing, you know, the kingdom of heaven coming in your marketplace, and I was interviewing a guy who works for the Bank of England, and I said, you know, how, as a Christian, how do you operate when, you know, in finance, in banking, it can seem very much like a dog eat dog world. You know, how do you operate in a dog eat dog world? And it just, without even missing a beat, he said, don't eat the dog. You know, and it's like, you don't have to play that game.
You don't. That's right. I remember Lily Tomlin years ago said the problem when you're in the rat race is win or lose, you're still a rat. We've got a couple of comments here from Grant Vipers, of a dear friend of you guys and us here as well. He said it's always about our heart posture. Grant, great to have you with us, by the way, mate. Literally down the road, comparative to the rest of us, to you guys. That's right. It's always about our heart posture in everything we do. If we're full of His love, then we will make decisions based on His love for that person, their situation, and their future. How will our decisions impact the future of a single person to that of a company? It's an interesting point. We have the question that we have the opportunity to imitate the Father's heart in that process. And then he goes on to say, I think we need to trust our instincts more. Because if we walk in integrity, then we can trust that Holy Spirit has that covered, and we can be free from stressing whether or not we've made the right decision or not. Some great insights there, Grant.
Actually, picking up on that, it reminds me, actually, we were at a worship event with some friends in a home the other week, and a guy gave me a prophetic word, and it was funny. It was like completely out of context. I hadn't spoken to him. There was and he just gave me a word. And he had a picture of me sitting at this desk, and it was very much a work desk. And he talked about sort of work decisions, and one of the things that he talked about was, he said that something along the lines of, there'll be, you know, you'll have great wisdom in terms of like the people that you want to work with, and like who you want to work with and who you don't want to work with. And there was actually loads more in it than that. It was absolutely on the money. And so this is for want of a better word, a negative example in terms of, there was somebody that I was just getting a bad feeling about, and I was feeling like, actually, I don't want you working on my properties anymore. I really feel like I just don't want you there. And so I didn't, there was no malice, and there was no, I didn't need to confront but actually I just arranged other people to do certain things. So I never like sacked them or took them off. I just arranged other things. And a few weeks later, you know, it just came out, this person was just being hugely unreliable. And I was able to actually talk to, you know, one of the letting agents and say, actually, I had concerns, which is why I'd pulled, you know, and a number of things, and but equally actually, and more recently, felt that God has really put people into our team, where I've like called somebody and just felt immediately, I can trust you. I can trust you. So where I'm talking a lot, so
yeah, that's fine.
But one of the things actually, and one of the sort of spiritual principles or leadership, I think it comes into all of them. The Lord's really been speaking to us a lot, and speaking through Vicky to me actually about authority and about walking in your authority. So one of my many weak spots is that stuff to do with compliance, like stuff to do with fire safety or electric safety or things like that, you know, because of, you know, what the consequences can be, it plays heavily on my mind. We had a situation where somebody came around to inspect a property and they said, oh, you have to do this fire prevention work and you have to do this, you know, you have to board this out and you have to board underneath the stairs and you need to board this boiler cupboard, and it's like, there goes all the profit for this year, like in one fell swoop. But actually, I rang this other fire safety person who's a professional, and they said, actually, we won't just quote to do this work. If we come, we'll want to survey the whole house. And to be honest, if you feel like me about these compliance things, you put your head in your hands thinking, you're just going to find 50 other things that now I need to spend £100,000 on. But this was the guy that I clicked with, and I thought, I can trust you. Like, I just know I can trust you. And he came and he said, actually, this stuff that you've been told you have to do, you don't have to do it. All you have to do is build one little cabinet here, and that will cover everything. And he actually put it into a report, and I was like, how do I deal with this other person who's telling me I do need it? He said, you just send them my report and say if they want to talk to me, they can talk to me, you know. But one of the things Vicky, you know, was really good at reminding me, you know, because I was a bit nervous about, you know, going for this like second inspection, and it's like, remember your authority, you know, like God has given you this house and he's made you the guardian and the steward of this house. So you're the one that gets to decide. You decide who lives there. You decide who works there, who doesn't. And what stuff is done and isn't done. It's easy to allow things to just oppress you, just to come, you know, and feel like I have to do this.
Great insight, Rob.
Victim of it, you know, and to say, but actually, no, this is our authority that God has given us. And
amen. If you've been joining us here on The Power of New, we've been with Rob and Vicky Schulz from the UK out in Kent. We've been talking a lot about what does it mean to disciple a nation and spiritual leadership principles that work. We've looked at areas like dignity, human dignity. What does it mean to be in business for the betterment of others, but so that everybody wins, to see identity flourish, humans flourish, so their identity can be released, that business becomes a vehicle for doing that. And just some incredible practical examples these guys have given. And now as well, walking in authority. What does it mean to walk in our authority? It doesn't mean that we rule with an iron fist, but it means that we do get to choose who is going to operate and what is going to operate within our spheres of influence, and just incredibly practical. One, though, we're getting ready to land the plane here. One question I've got, and you've given about 7 or 8 already, I know, but is there a fresh story? We call them fresh demonies around here. Fresh demonies. Fresh demony. What God's doing right now in and through you guys.
So one of mine really is just those signs that God really knows you and really sees you. So, you know, I talked about my history and, you know, love teaching and all of that. But actually, there was quite a change for me over lockdown, and I wasn't particularly looking for a job. But then I saw this job advertised at Rochester Cathedral, and I went for that job, and it just is so completely me. It really ties into everything that I love. It's teaching, it's sharing faith, it's heritage and history, which I really love. And I've kind of been doing that for just over a year. And that really feels like me, but also feeling, do you know what? There's more here. And actually about 3 months ago, God actually put someone on both of our hearts who leads a local church, very, very old church near us. It's been there for about 1,000 years. And so you looked him up, didn't you, as a friend? And that's a whole story in itself. Might want to share snippets of that, I don't know. But he is involved in a heritage project in this church. We know the church has been there for about 1,000 years. We don't know all the details yet. They have got massive archives that have never been looked through. And this is, I am like a kid in a sweet
I can imagine.
It is just, it's a wonderful opportunity, because actually the whole thing is about transforming our town and bringing the community together. So there's a big picture, which again ticks so many of our boxes. But this particular heritage piece is so completely me. It's just incredible watching the way that God is just gently opening doors and shoehorning me into roles that, you know, if I were going to write my own dream roles, it would be this kind of thing. And so I've actually almost been reticent to get involved, because it's like, this is just too much me.
It's too good to be true.
I love it.
So yeah, for me, it's just that God knows me, and I'm really excited about that.
Jumping onto the back of that, I mean, I'd been praying a few weeks ago, and Vicky had mentioned this person to me, and then in my prayer time, God was bringing him to mind, and so I reached out and said, you know, do you want to have a coffee? And we had time together, and they said, why do you feel God's brought you here? And then at the end of that conversation, they said, I've been praying really hard that God would send me a friend to share the journey with. And my heart just went out to them. It's like, oh my goodness, could feel how alone they were with it, and how desperate they were for God to just bring someone alongside. So because of how that had gone, and how like that they've shared, and how much they've been praying about that, it's really made me determined, like, when God puts these people into my mind, I'm going to pull that thread. I'm going to not ignore it. I'm going to actively go on. So a few weeks later, a guy that I knew from sixth form, who I hadn't seen for at least 20 years, came to mind.
16 to 18-year-old.
Yeah. So which was a little while ago. And so I thought, I wonder how he's doing. So I Googled this friend of mine who I hadn't seen for 20 years. And I'd known that when they left school, they had some mental health issues. And I didn't know whether they'd fully recovered from that, if they'd entered the world of work, and how they were doing. I Googled them. Within like 30 seconds, I found out they are the mayor of their town, you know, like, and I thought, have I still got their number? And I WhatsApped them. And like within a couple of hours, we were in chatting again, and they said, like, why don't you come and we'll have a beer? And we just reconnected, you know. And so it's just really been great.
That's amazing.
Like God pops someone in your mind.
Yeah. Follow that nudge.
I love it.
Blessed by that reconnection.
Yeah.
So, amen. And these are great fresh testimonies. Again, the move and work of Holy Spirit. Grant again just has got a word to share. He goes, I just wanted to say to Rob and Vicky that they are not imitations. Whilst when people see you, they see Jesus. I feel Father wants to remind you of your uniqueness and not to compromise your values of what you stand for and believe in. This will pave a way for a new path to be laid in a new adventure, new territory where at present you can only see obstructions to this dream or vision you have held. So there is new pathways as you walk in the authority that you've got that are going to open up. And thank you, Grant, for sharing that.
Exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's really
good
cool
stuff. Well, we're getting ready to finish up here.
It's got to be time for the last question, the important one that they did all their research on before they. In the interests of the power of new, what was the last new thing you bought online and what was it for?
I love these really deep questions. So we did actually look this up earlier. The last thing that we bought, it was Joe's birthday. He was 22 recently, a couple of weeks ago, and I bought him a book called What If? Serious scientific answer to absurd hypothetical questions. It's all stuff like if you threw a steak from space, how high would you have to, how far from the earth would you have to be for it to be cooked when it landed? And it does actually break down the answers scientifically. Well,
I want that book.
There's a whole series of them.
I think Jessie would enjoy that book.
My God,
she would. But that's how his mind works. He's forever got a random question. So yeah.
That's fantastic. I love it.
What a great last
I
thing you
love
purchased online. Throw a steak from space. How far would it have to fall before it's cooked? That is awesome.
That's fantastic.
Oh dear, it is always a joy to connect up with you guys, and we're thankful for your time as always, and we look forward to seeing you in person again very soon at our earliest convenience, because we do enjoy camping out together. If you've been listening here to The Power of New, we've been with our dear friends and friends of Anothen, Rob and Vicky Schulz from the UK, talking all things kingdom of God and life, practical things of walking in business and seeing what does it mean to disciple a nation. And we've go back, if you've only just joined us, go back and watch from the start through, because there is lots of gold that just drops in beautiful and profound ways that will be things that will really help you right where you are. Of course, the Power of New podcast relies on its support of its listeners just like you, and you can help continue delivering this content by donating through the provided link on the ticker below there on the screen. If you're a US resident or US based business looking to donate, of course your donation is always tax deductible. We are a registered 501c3 not for profit. But gosh, it's been good.
It has.
And remember, God wants to take you further and deeper into encounters with our Father's always perfect love for greater impact, because he wants to